Hello, welcome to Laser Cut and Fly. On this channel, I'm going to show you how to get free plans off the internet, how to convert them for your laser, how to cut out the components and build and fly your own aircraft. And with old timers like this, I'll show you how to convert to radio control. Let's get going. Welcome back to Laser Cut and Fly RC Models. I'm a laser model guy, and what I want to do today is I'm going to complete the airframe of the KielKraft Contestor. In the last program, or in the last video, I built this one side, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the second side. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to build it straight on top of this first one. And the reason I'm going to do it like that is because then they'll be identical, both sides will be exactly the same. So I've got all the components here, and all I'm going to do is I'll start with the nose, and I'll put that piece straight on top. We'll line it up, and I will pin that in place, just like this. So that's now pinned in place, and we can now build up the second side straight on top of the first. So here is F1, the top section there. Just going to put a little bit of glue on, and we will pin that in place just like this. Put that on, hold it in place, and then just put a couple of pins in there. Oh, I've got to charge the tablet soon. I'm getting a reminder from Alexa. Okay, so that's that piece in, and then we take the bottom piece here, and I'll do exactly the same there. A bit of glue. Put that in place. Pins to hold that down. There we go. Next, I'll form this area around the window for the cabin. That's very, very fast now because everything is just sitting on top of the components that we've already got in place, so it's so much faster than before when we were trying to figure out or measure where our components would go. There we are. Just pin that in. Next part of our cabin, which comes round the top of the window. Put some glue on. Pin this in place. There we are. Now, I've just got the top now, the top of the cabin that supports the wing. That will go straight in exactly in the same way, right above the one that we've already got. And then after that, it's just a case of using our 1/8 balsa again to to make up the rest of the frame, and those pieces will just fit in exactly the same, and that's how we're going to do the second side. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just put those bits on top now, and then I'll bring you back when I've got the two sides done. So that's both sides done now. I've finished the second side. So all I need to do now is just run a sharp knife down between the two, just to separate any spaces where a little bit of glue might have just crossed over and stuck the two bits together. And by doing that, we'll get our two sides separate, and we'll be ready to start thinking about building those, or building the whole fuselage. So there's the two sides, and that's how the fuselage is going to go together. So the first thing for us to do is to use these formers. This is former 1, which will sit nicely in there. And so we'll stick that in place. We'll make sure that it's at 90 degrees, and then we can put the other side on as well. And then what we'll do then is we will fit former number 2, which will sit right there. And once they're both on, we can put the two sides together, and we'll be ready. So I'll just do those now. And it's important when you do this that you ensure that the former is absolutely upright at 90 degrees to the side of the fuselage. And the way we can do that is quite simple. I just use a nice anything with a nice square on it as a set square. There we go. Anything with a nice 90-degree corner. So there we go. I would normally just cut the corner off a piece of card and use the piece of card as a right angle. So I'll just go on with putting the other former on, and then I'll bring you back when we're ready to put the two sides together. So these have set now, and the next thing for me to do is to add the other side. So I'm going to put this on the top of the formers, and then and stick that down so that we've got the fuselage sides that then be held by the formers. So a little bit of glue. There maybe, a little bit more. Okay, so let's now put this side on into place. There we go. Just make sure that it's lined up in exactly the same way as the one on the other side. And then when I'm happy that everything's in the right place, what I'm going to do is put a little weight on there. A nice flat ruler to just hold that in place until the glue sets. And when I take a look from above, I can see that these lines are all exactly in line, you know, from a side view. So I'll bring you back when that's set, and we'll start looking at making the shape of the fuselage, making the narrowing, tapering shape. Okay, so the two sides are now stuck together, fastened nicely. What we're going to do first, I'm going to show you how I'm going to shape the nose and work out how that works. So we've got the formers. We've got former 2, 3, 4, and then 5, which goes in between there. And we've also got the dashboard. We'll put the dashboard on last because we'll be using a piece of balsa to show us the angle, the correct angle that we want that to make it all fit nice and smooth. So the first thing for us to do is I'm going to put former number 5 in, and that'll sit just there, but you can see that it would fall straight through. So if I put a loose elastic band at this end, just put that on, what I'll find now is that when I put my formers in, they are held quite nicely. See how that's held? So I can just loosen that a little. So all I need to do is apply the glue. I can fit that, and then I can fit the other formers and start moving along. So that's how I'm going to do it. So the main part of the fuselage is now complete, but you can see I haven't put on any of the stringers, and I've left some gaps at the bottom where braces and cross braces and such would go. And the reason for that is because as we're building up like this, we need to now start taking into account what we're going to do with the electronics. So the motor is going to be mounted on the front, and the ESC is going to sit on a platform just here, so that the battery cable can come through to the top, so when the wing's off we'll be able to fit the new battery or fit the battery, and that battery plug will be there. So that will be on this platform here, which will just sit neatly inside. Will just sit neatly inside like that and be glued into position. And this is the platform that we cut out earlier for our receiver, and I've been asked about a gyro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit the A3V2 gyro to this aeroplane and I'll show you how all that's set up, but that will be in a separate video right at the end. So they will both sit on this platform, and that platform has been made to go in between the two formers and just sit in neatly like that. So there'll be the two platforms so far, and then there'll be a further platform in the top where the battery will sit, but where we position the battery will depend on the centre of balance. And the other thing that we have to take into consideration as well is that on the original design, the undercarriage is bound to this former, but I'm going to do something different this time, and I'll show you that when we finally come to it. Okay, so that's where we're at. I'm going to fasten these pieces in, and then I'll be able to start thinking about where we're going to, or planning where we're going to put the servos and where they are going to exit and how they're going to operate the the rudder and the elevator. Okay, I'll get those in place now, and I'll be right back. So I put the two platforms in now, and I put Velcro on them, and the Velcro will hold the components in place. Now there's the ESC, you can see that's fastened in, and I've got a small extension on the ESC so that I can bring it outside when I connect the battery, and then I can put it into the position where I want it to help with the centre of gravity. So next I will be putting a platform in down this end, and that will hold the two servos that will control the back end of the aircraft. Before I do that though, I'm going to put the stringers in around the nose to just to give it all a bit of strength now, and you know, make it all a bit stronger. Now these are curved, these stringers, and there's a couple of ways you can curve the balsa. If it's very soft balsa like this is, you can put a little bit of a twist on it, or a little bit of a turn on it with your fingers, and if you keep doing that just a few times, you'll see that it does start to bend. And if the balsa is a little bit harder or a little bit stronger, then you'll probably need to use the steamer or a kettle. Just use steam, and if you just hold it and hold a bend on it while it's in the steam, it'll take that shape. So there's a couple of ways to do this, but this is very soft balsa. I'm already achieving the curve that I need. You can see that there. Okay, so I'm going to put these stringers in, strengthen up the nose. The motor's now attached. A quick thing, one thought that you must bear in mind when you're attaching your motor: if you're not going to be able to get access to your cables, make sure it's turning in the correct direction before you fit it. Okay, so to get these curves, if the wood itself won't curve just by gently teasing it, then you can use steam, and I've got this little steamer here, but a kettle would be just as good. And I'm going to curve this, and I'll show you how I do that. Once it starts boiling and the steam starts coming out, you can just run the stick along in front of it, trying to put a slight curve on it yourself without overdoing it. You don't want to break the stick. And just by doing that, what we can do is we get this nice curve. You can see, and you can see how that is now going to follow that line when we cut it down. So I'm just going to keep doing that, but that's how to achieve this nice smooth curve. Okay, so this is the main spar, and I've marked off the 353mm either side. Now this is the wingtip spar, which tapers down, and so the bottom of that corner will be just there. So I can now mark that and then trim this excess off. So if I do that, and then you'll be able to see how the shape of this wing is coming together. So make sure we're there. Now if I just take that off, and then what we've got is we've now got a shape at the end of the spar, which will match the wingtip spar, and then our W3, which is the one, and our W3 will sit over both of those right in the corner, and our W2s will sit along the main spar. Okay, so that's how we've dealt with that. And at the other end we've got our D1 formers, so we can do exactly the same, get the bottom of that point exactly in line, and then we can draw a straight line up there and trim that edge. So if I just put a scrap piece there to help rest the ruler. I'll put this piece here just to rest the ruler, and then I can come right along there, make sure I'm in exactly the right position, and I'm now able to just trim that. And then what I know is when we trim our other side to match, straight along that line there. And then what we've got now is our centre dihedral will sit like that with our D1 either side, bracing it, making it stronger, and our end dihedral on both sides will overlap just like that. And now you can see how the wing in the centre will have this dihedral corner, and then at the wingtip it will do the same. So just like that, and that will be the shape of the wing. There'll be another wingtip at that end as well. Okay, so that's how I'm going to do the wing, but I'll be building it in 3 sections. So we'll start with this section. I'll put all the W2s on, then I'll build up the wingtip sections, and then we'll fasten them all together at the end, and I'll show you how we do that. So working with the main spar to start with, on each side of the wing we've got 9 W2 wing formers or profiles. So if we look at 353 millimeters, that means that we are around about 35 millimeters apart for each of them. When you think that there's going to be a W1 in the center and a W3 at the end, so there's going to be 9 in the middle of that. So if we start from here and we count 10 times along, we'll then put the W3 in. So that's where I get my 35 millimeters from. So I'm just going to mark this up just with tiny little marks. Put that in the wrong place there. That wasn't a good start, was it? So 35, 120, 105. There we go. So that's our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's the position that they're going to be in. So they'll just sit straight on that spar like that. Now an interesting thing to note is this, that the bottom of this profile isn't flat. So if I put that spar flat down on the board, there'll be a slight gap at the top of our former would sit like that off the spar. So what we need to do is we need to raise the spar up slightly, and I'll do that just by putting a thin strip of balsa underneath it so that the profiles can sit down properly on top of the spar. So I'll do that now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2 more needed. I'll just pop those 2 out of there. 8 and 1 more. It's a bit reluctant, that one. Don't know why that was trying to resist. Anyway, so there we go, we've got our 9 W2 formers, and we can now build up this wingtip. Well, sorry, we can now build up this part of the main wing. So I've pinned my spar down. I've used long pins to go straight through the pieces of balsa that are supporting it, so that I can get the wing formers all the way on. I've made myself a small set square from the corner of a piece of A4 card, and I'm going to use that to make sure that I put every one of these on exactly square, and they're going to sit straight on that spar just like that. Okay, so let's get them all stuck together, and then we can worry about the leading edge and the trailing edge. Okay, and that trailing edge just touches down nicely, which will give us a good a wife's glittery card. Make sure that is perfectly square. Yep, there we go. So the leading edge is 5mm square balsa. Leave it, and it's got to come to our the bottom of our dihedral here, so it has to come forward that far. I'm going to leave it 5 or so millimeters long on each side, because when we're ready to put everything together and we measure up, we'll then be cutting the angle of this, and I'd rather wait until I can see how it's all going together before I cut that. So if I mark this end up, there's our dihedral mark there. So if I just come along, maybe 5 or 10 millimeters, and I'll cut that there, and then I'll fit the I'll fit the leading edge. That seems to fit really nicely in there, exactly perfect. Okay, so I'll apply a dab of glue and put that in, hold it in place with pins. Yeah, very good. And that'll make sure everything is absolutely perfectly aligned. Okay, just make sure I've got enough overhang here to trim it down later. Just put a pin in there to hold that in. I'll put a pin against it here to hold it in. And another one here at the end. And I think we just let that set now, and that's our leading edge on. So while I'm waiting for the central or the right hand central part of the wing to set, I've started working on the right hand wingtip, and the way I've gone about this is I've fastened down the pre-cut components, so it's W9, 10 and 11 plus the trailing edge that I'm going to use, and I've then stuck them all together, and I've put the spar in, and I've used W8 and W3 to set the position of the spar, and I'm going to wait until all that sets. They're not fastened in at the moment. All they're doing is just giving me the positioning so that I can make sure the spar is in the right place. And then when that's all set, I'm going to raise it up just as I did with the main spar. I'll just raise it up so that I can then fit the formers on, and they'll all go in place. They'll all be 34mm apart. So I'll bring you back when this is all set and I can show you the next part. So I've loosened these pins and I've raised up our central spar, and I've put the trailing edge in, and I've glued it at each point. So that's now in, and that section of the wing is completed until we come to attach to the wingtip and to the other central part of the wing. When we attach them, we'll then be putting our W1 at the front in the centre, and W3 will sit between these two straight across, and of course our little dihedral will fit in the back there, our little supporting brace. So what I've done with this wing is, once the outer edge or the trailing edge and the wingtip end had all set, I've lifted that up now, and I've measured and marked out the positions of all of these ribs. So what I'll do now is I'll fasten them into place, and then all I'll need to do is put on the leading edge, which will be the 5mm square. So a piece of this will have to curve so that it will fit the profile of the wing, and then I'll be ready to make the other side. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to flip these over, and I'm going to make the other side of the central wing on the back of this one so that they're identical, and I'll be making the other wingtip on the back of this one so they're identical. So that's how the wings are going to be completed. I'm going to just quickly do that now, and I'll bring you back and show you when I've finished these parts. So I've completed the wing now, and I've put the dihedrals in, and all I did with that was measured on Lightburn how high the end of the wingtip has to be when this bit's flat, and then when this bit's flat how high that needs to be, and so that was quite straightforward, and that sits in perfectly there, because remember we shaped those a little earlier when we were using Lightburn. We shaped the top of the cabin to fit the bottom of the wing, so that's how that will sit. The tail plane was done in exactly the same way.
I have made a modification, and I did this on Lightburn. Instead of it having a straight trailing edge or a continuous trailing edge, I made these components up. I shortened these formers in exactly the same way as I've made all the other formers, by matching them up to the new shape that I designed, and then I cut those parts out. The elevator will sit in and will turn, and that will all sit neatly on the back just there when it's stuck down, and then the fin with the rudder will then sit straight on top of that, and it will all click neatly into place. And so that's where we're at so far. The electrics are in, or the electronics are in, and we're just waiting to put the tailplane on, and then we can fasten the wing on, measure the centre of balance, and then we can decide where we're going to put the battery. And then as soon as I've done that, I'll be covering the plane, but that will all be in the next video. So that's it for this video. So it was good to see you. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.